Manchester, and welcome to another edition of Girard at Large. I am your in all kinds of hot water and enjoying the bath host, Rich Girard. Thanks for tuning in. As you know, you can find us online at girardatlarge.com, and you can find us on Facebook and Twitter, also at Girard at Large, where we encourage you to like us and to follow us. Why? Because when we break news, you're the first one to know. And unlike when you break wind, it won't sneak up on you and kill you. We kind of pretty much put it out there. All right, I am in a bit of a goofy mood. It's been a busy day. And I know because of some emails and texts we put out today, there are some folks that are going to be joining us tonight that probably aren't normal to our viewership. And to that end, I'm going to shake it up. As you know, I've been having candidates on this show to talk about their campaigns for alderman and school board, and that's going to continue tonight as Ward 1 school board candidate Phil Tuttle, Ward 9 aldermanic candidate Troy Micklon, and Ward 10 aldermanic candidate Robert Rivera will be with us. But where I normally would bring them on the show and save what I have to say for once they've left so that I don't put anybody in an awkward spot. Because of the material I put out and the people I expect to be tuning in, I'm going to lead the show talking about the things that I'd like to talk about, and then I will bring on the guests. Now, as with all guests, the mere appearance on this show is no indication of support for either my write-in candidacy or any of my views, and I want to make that clean. I want to make that plain and clear, because everyone running for a so-called lower office, everyone running for alderman, everyone running for school board, needs every vote they can get, whether they support me or Jay Rouet or the man on the moon. And I don't want to do anything to jeopardize them being able to get those votes, because ultimately, this candidacy that I have announced in recent days and played with on this show and elsewhere for the last couple of weeks is designed to get people who are disaffected with the leadership of Jay Rouet, the alleged Republican mayor of Manchester, to come to the polls. And I've been telling you for some time now, there is disillusionment, particularly among the fiscally conservative Republicans in this city, that someone they voted for, believing he would honor his oft-made promises to reduce spending and taxes. Remember, he was the only candidate who would never raise your taxes and was going to give us a tax cut, finally give us a tax cut. Not only didn't do that, but at nearly 4% last year, gave us one of the biggest tax hikes this city has seen in at least a decade, and probably going back to when Bob Baines was mayor in the early 2000s. Add to that this year's tax hike, which they claim is only something like 2.5%. But here's the thing. You're not going to see the tax rate get set until after the election. Why? Because the city didn't turn in the necessary documents to get it done before the election. And as you probably know, and here's a reminder if you forgot, and here's some information if you didn't, the city of Manchester doesn't set a tax rate. No community in the state of New Hampshire does. They project a tax rate based on what they believe their revenues will be and what the appropriated expenditures were. And then they send all of the data up to the state of New Hampshire Department of Revenue Administration, and the Department of Revenue Administration tells you what your tax rate is. Here's the problem. Sharon Wickens, the city's finance officer, has been sending very loud warnings to the Board of Mayor and Aldermen, telling them that their non-tax revenues, specifically with respect to building permits, are not performing. What's that mean? It means they aren't going to make their projections. So when that data gets up to the board, the Department of Revenue Administration, the Department of Revenue Administration is going to say, well, gee, we have to take that shortfall that we're going to project based on your data, and we're going to have to increase your taxes. Last year, the mayor gave himself a pat on the back because the tax hike was only going to be 3.4%, which was exactly what Joyce Craig gave us in the last year of her mayoralty. Well, when the real data got up to the board, the Department of Revenue Administration, that 3.4 turned into 3.85, which is a bigger tax hike than Joyce Craig gave us and any that Ted Gatsas gave us, for sure. in the city of Manchester. So we don't know what the tax hike's going to be, but we can project with fair confidence based on non-performing, non-tax revenues, it's going to be bigger than they projected. Add on top of that, they just want to go out now and spend $2.5 million on a skate park because, well, Bill Berry in Ward 10 thinks Wolf Park is, Wolf Park needs some love and attention. For those of us who were around when the last skate park was closed because it was vandalized out of existence, and the mini skate park that's over at Rock Rimmon right now, I wish I had taken pictures when I was there, but it didn't occur to me. Yeah, why would you want to do that? Never mind spend $2.5 million. And even if you did want to spend $2.5 million, would you rather spend it on a skateboard park that you're then going to have to maintain and fight all the vandalism that's going to happen there? Or would you put it into the roads? You know, the city, while increasing what it put into roads, is nowhere near funding what the Department of Public Works says it needs to adequately address our roads on an annual basis. In fact, they need another $5 million, and so we're going to take $2.5 million and give it to a skateboard park? Interesting. By the way, why wasn't this done in the budget? So this is a long way of saying, there are a lot of people who believed what Jay Rouet said. They believed he was going to prioritize and reduce spending. They believed he was going to cut taxes. They believed he was actually going to fight the homeless issue. Let's show some pictures, shall we? Get our homeless pictures for me, B? Yes. Oh, there were a bunch of them. A couple of people pushing a cart around Pulaski Park. That's that's them breaking their camp from Pulaski Park, which is at the corner of Pine and High and Bridge and Union. Then we get some in the downtown that were actually sent to us by a viewer. That's exit 2 off of 293. Since there was an alderman, I believe it was Norm Vincent, who said something about, well, he only sees the panhandlers out on South Willow Street. And there we are at the corner of Granite and Elm. Where's another one? Oh, there we are at Lake and Elm, right? Gateway to your city, and this is what we've got. Plus the other ones that I showed you. Are those the only ones? I think they are. And that's just in the last couple days driving around the city, the ones I could at least take pictures of. And then there was one I think I took of some guy on some kind of motorbike that I don't believe is considered street legal. There you go. Have you noticed all the electric bikes and dirt bike kinds of things that have been in our city? Yeah, I got a report I'll be writing up on how many traffic violations the City of Manchester Police Department has issued. I don't want to spoil anything here. But you'll pretty quickly come to the conclusion that traffic control is not exactly a priority of the Manchester Police Department. I know, they're busy tracing down real crimes. Funny thing is the city of Peoria, Illinois, which in many ways, size, demographics, land, everything is very similar to Manchester. Not that long ago, they embarked on a systematic traffic enforcement program, which within 3 years had brought their violent crime rate down by 40%. Turns out when you pull people over, you find people who have warrants for their arrest and stuff in their cars that they shouldn't have, so you get to take them off the street. It makes a real dent in your crime rate. Who knew? Oh, well, yeah, there's a really big study on it. It was pretty nationally famous, but we don't really worry about that here in the city of Manchester. And it's great when you can turn around and you can say, yeah, doing a good job, but when the data tells you that a good job really isn't being done, it's not your job as an elected official to pat someone on the back or maybe on the head and say, nice try, keep going, you're doing a great job. It's your job to ask questions to figure out why you're not getting the results that your community is paying a fortune in taxes for. It's your job to push for changes. When the mayor of the city of Manchester did not challenge his police chief who said, gee, we cooperate with ICE, if they have a detainer request, we'll hold someone. And then he said, but those are few and far between. What's a detainer request? Yeah, ICE knows a bad guy is about to be released and they put a detainer on them and they say, we want that guy. So we'll hold him if ICE does that. But did we get deputized by ICE to hold illegal aliens after they're arrested for committing a crime? Now, the police chief tried to say, literally, we are too busy to be deputized by ICE. And he made it sound like if they were deputized, they'd have to be, out there running, immigration enforcement operations. Not the case. That deputization allows them, when they pick somebody up, if they discover that they're here illegally, which he said they ask everybody about their citizenship when they are arrested for committing a crime. Well, if you do that and someone says, and you find out through that process that somebody is not here legally, if you were deputized by ICE, you could put them on ICE at Valley Street or the holding cell at MPD, pick up the phone and call ICE, and ICE will come and get them. We do not do that in Manchester. You don't even need to be deputized to do that, but being deputized means you can hold them not for any other reason than they're here illegally, not even the reason why you arrested them. Okay? But we don't do that in the city of Manchester. Why not? Why not? So when the mayor basically went, well, the police said they're too busy, so let's move along, he runs around and tells everybody we're not a sanctuary city. Well, we have sanctuary policies. You have them in your schools too. Why do you think the school administration in late January, after President Trump signed his executive order on immigration enforcement, why do you think the school district sent home a letter saying we're not going to allow federal law enforcement into our schools? Now, you might be saying, well, Rich, do you really want to have ICE in arresting children who are here illegally because their parents brought them here? Well, A, that's not really happening across the country or anywhere, is it? But B, frankly, after the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts held a press conference after it arrested the leadership of the Trinitas Gang, a violent organization populated by illegal immigrants from the Dominican Republic that recruits people from the Dominican Republic to join their ranks here in the United States, and oh, by the way, also recruits high school kids. And the U.S. Attorney in the state of Massachusetts said that that gang had connections to the city of Manchester, such that Channel 9 sent a reporter and a satellite truck to report on the arrests and what the U.S. Attorney in Massachusetts had to say. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I want federal law enforcement to be able to go into our schools if they have reason to believe that there are violent gang members that are hiding out in math class. Of course, the math class itself might just be doing violence to them, since fewer than 1 in 5 kids in this city is actually performing math on grade level. Fewer than 1 in 3 are on grade level in English. Less than 1 in 6 are on grade level in science. And yet we are focusing on diversity, equity, and inclusion, making sure we have all kinds of weirdly named positions and bureaucrats that are supposed to make sure that, everyone's equal in the city of Manchester schools, all the while lying to parents about the transgendered or gender nonconforming behavior of their children in school, a policy that literally at one point said, they've cleaned up the language a little bit, but the effect is still the same, that if parents ask, you are not to share what little Johnny or little Susie are pretending to be in school unless little Johnny or little Susie has given you permission to do it. So it essentially tells school staff to lie to parents about the behavior of their kids and to shelter those kids from the oversight of their parents so that the schools can help socially transition them from one gender to the other. And that is a problem. So when the city of Manchester actually won its case against an aggrieved mother who filed a lawsuit against the school district for that policy, when the Supreme Court of the state of New Hampshire lost its mind and said parents actually don't have a right to know what their kids are doing in school, you would expect a guy like Jay Rouet to come forward and say, you know what, I understand what the court just did, but this is wrong and I want to repeal this policy. Instead, like with the letter that got sent home by the schools, he said nothing about the policy. He said nothing. Did he listen to people who told, who gave him alternatives of what could be done with $85 million instead of blowing up Beach Street School to build a new one? Nope, he listened to the school district say it would cost at least $53 million just to rebuild Wilson Elementary School, which of course has been closed, despite the fact that it was a 2021 study that said the whole thing could be repaired, upgraded, updated, and made good enough for the 21st century for less than $5 million. Folks, this stuff is legendary, and at the end of the day, what we have in Jay Rouet is a show pony. He's great. I'll give him credit. That guy is a PR machine, and he knows how to make it look like he's listening and he's concerned, and then he goes and he does what he does. And in just about every step of the way, he has either he's both violated and ignored, and in some cases made pretend he never made the promise on any number of things. Now, why didn't I come forward earlier? Why am I doing this now? Well, there are a number of reasons, not the least of which is at the time of the filing, I didn't have a clear path to do it, and prior to, as you all know, Chrissy Cantor had thrown her name into the ring. Things changed there, and by the time she pulled out, there was no time to get in, and even had there been time for me to get in, I wouldn't have been able to do it because I just, for personal circumstances, couldn't get my arms around it. Okay, there's a lot going on in life, despite the fact that politics is something that I played with for a long time. It's not my life. It's something that I do out of a sense of, duty, obligation. When you've learned what I've learned over the years and you know what I know, I feel compelled to do what I can to bring it to light so that people can make better decisions. But as this season has marched on, the discontent of people that stop me at the grocery store, send me messages on social media, talk to me when I'm out and about, send me text, phone calls, emails, whatever it is. It just kept growing and growing and growing. And then I think the thing that finally broke it for me was talking to the city clerk last week and finding out that the absentee ballot vote count in this city, for this point, is down 35%. And when the city clerk told me he was expecting maybe no more than 13,000 people to turn out, which is about 6,000 fewer voters than voted just 2 years ago, I felt compelled to do it because at that point, it seemed to me that there were a number of really great candidates running for office who were dead on arrival because people were so frustrated. The people who thought they voted for change 2 years ago and got Joyce Craig 2.0, right? The people, even Joyce Craig wasn't as crazy as Jay Rouet's been on some of these zoning issues where he's all about piling up the density in neighborhood. It's funny. I look at all of these people who are all in favor of these changes, like Bryce Caou up in Ward 1, all bent, we have to have greater. They don't live in the neighborhoods that are going to suffer the consequences of the greater density they think is great for the rest of us, but none of them. Trisciani doesn't live. Trisciani's like one of the masterminds of this thing. She lives up in Ward 1. Her neighborhood will never feel the impacts of the types of density she's championing for neighborhoods like mine, the so-called R2 or mixed-use neighborhoods. They have no idea what they're going to do to entire sections of the West Side and the center city when they double the density of the R2s and the R3s. They're going to blow it off the map. You think that Lawrence and Lowell suck? Wait till they do this to Manchester. Within 5 to 7 years, you won't recognize the place. You think you got a problem with absentee landlords now? You'll have it in spades then after they chop these things. You could take the property I live in, which is a 2-family in an R2 district. That could overnight, without any impact on parking, without any feedback from neighbors, you could double the number of units by right with what they've proposed. And you think that's going to be an owner-occupied dwelling that attracts families? You're out of your mind. If you think that there isn't a thing that Manchester is looking at doing that Worcester, Lawrence, Lowell, Springfield, Hartford, any other armpit in the state of New England, in the region of New England, or up and down the east coast of the country hasn't done, and it hasn't worked. Why is it all of these places with greater density than Manchester have got housing that is much more expensive than Manchester? The answer is because density doesn't do anything other than turn your place into a dump. That's it. That's it. And the areas that are run down, and the areas that are hoi polloi will stay hoi polloi, and the middle class will keep doing what they have been doing. Even Bob Baines in 2021 publicly stated that the middle class was leaving the city of Manchester. Why do you think that is? If you're a family and you can't find a 2 or 3 bedroom apartment for your children, you're not staying in the city of Manchester. If you want to have a little room for the kids to run around and stretch their legs in the backyard, you can buy the same house for less money and lower taxes, actually, in any of the surrounding towns. It's nuts. Nobody is listening. The powers that be, especially the mayor, they got it all figured out. They got it all locked in. They're on a plane. Yes, they are. And so maybe this is a way to get them to listen. Now, do I think I'm going to win this race? No, I don't. Would I be thrilled if I did? And would Manchester be, would Manchester first be the motto of Rich Girard? Would you start seeing things that made sense for you, the unheard people in the city of Manchester? Absolutely. The school board wouldn't know what hit it any more than the rest of the city would, because at the end of the day, all these people who claim they're data-driven, all they do is drive the data out of sight so they can keep doing what they're doing. That's not my definition of data-driven. And so this is your opportunity to be heard. This is your opportunity to tell Jay Rouet and anybody else running for office, you meant it when you voted for tax cuts. You meant it when you voted for resources to go directly to our schools. You meant it when you said there was going to be law enforcement against the vagrants that were trashing neighborhoods up and down this city. That you meant it. Now, there are some people who think I could potentially cause Jessica Spillers to get elected mayor. Well, in the off chance that that actually happened, Jessica Spillers would be one and done, and there would be a board of aldermen that hopefully would keep her corralled. That being said, I don't believe that's the case. I don't really think I'm going to be pulling droves of voters away from Jay Rouet. What I hope I'm going to do, and what my intent is to pull those of you who are frustrated because you know you've been ignored out of your homes on Election Day, which is this Tuesday, November 4th, to send a message to vote for Rich Girard because you meant it 2 years ago when you said you wanted change. And you know a guy like Girard has got has been around the block, knows what to do, and more importantly has can I say balls? Has the balls to do it, or at least try, and start making the fundamental changes that recognize you live in this city, you pay the taxes, and you deserve to be heard. What I expect is that Jay Rouet's margin of victory will be smaller than it otherwise would have been, but big enough that when he goes off to run for Congress, he might decide he has to play it a little differently, or maybe it's small enough that he can't claim a mandate that he'll run for Congress with, which means we'd be stuck with him for the whole term, but he probably wouldn't win anyway, so we'll be stuck with him whether he's paying attention or not. But that's my appeal to you. That's why I decided to do this. When I heard those turnout numbers, I thought something has to be done to let people know that they can be heard, and in being heard, hopefully rescue the great candidates that we have running for alderman and school board. You can go to girardformayor.com. I've identified those candidates. I've identified the issues that you've been ignored on. I encourage you to listen, to read it, to share it if you agree, to write me in, and get that message sent. And more importantly, go down ballot. Vote for the people that will actually try to make the changes we all know need to be made, and just might actually work with those of us who know what's going on and put whatever political heft we had behind them to put them in office. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, I thank you for your attention. We're going to take a quick break while we get set up for Phil Tuttle, candidate for school board in Ward 1, Troy Micklon, candidate for alderman in Ward 9, and Robert Rivera, candidate for alderman in Ward 10, as we head into the final 35 minutes of the show and send you off to the final days before this election. Stay tuned. And we're back. Thank you for staying tuned and being patient while we got all set up here in this amazing studio. Unbelievable, as I like to call it. All right, joining us now from left to right, at least my left as I'm facing them, we have Phil Tuttle on the end there, school board candidate in Ward 1. Right next to Phil, we have Troy Micklon, the aldermanic candidate in Ward 9. And immediately to my right, we have Robert Rivera, the candidate for alderman in Ward 10. So, gentlemen, welcome to the Girard at Large television show.
Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you here. I've been paying, some attention to your campaign, particularly yours, Troy, because you made a point of coming to the Board of Mayor and Alderman meetings, and you post frequently to a site that I'm an administrator for. So I've been catching glimpses of your campaign. So since I started with you, I'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, and what prompted you to run for alderman here in Ward 9.
All right, thank you. So my name is Troy Micklon. I'm running for alderman in Ward 9. I've lived in Ward 9 since 2003 with my wife. We have a son who goes to the Manchester Public Schools. Professionally, my job title is a little weird. It's called the Scrum Master. And there I work with organizations to help them work on how to collaborate, prioritize their work, and be transparent with the ways that they're delivering results. And that's something that I'm trying to bring to City Hall itself. Currently, I'm doing that with the United States Air Force as a contractor, but I've done this with other organizations such as MilliporeSigma, also known as Merck throughout the world, the largest and oldest pharmaceutical and life science company in the world. And I did that in their CFO area. And I did that for a number of years and was pretty successful there. And the reason I got into this race is, honestly, it's because of my son. He's been, going through the Manchester school system, and I think that there are some changes that need to happen in the schools. They're not performing as well as I'd like to see, and that, drove me down the rabbit hole of going further into the other issues within the city. And I think that there's a lot of things that are not going the way it should. Our taxes are out of control. Our infrastructure, is failing in a lot of ways. Everybody's, complains about the potholes. So, and it's not even winter yet.
And
it's not even winter yet.
Apparently, we're going to complain about the fact that we don't have a skate park. But,
Yep, and a skate park too. Yeah, so that was the big topic at the last Alderman meeting, where they're saying it's going to be a $2.5 million skate park. However, after 20-year bonding, they're estimating it to be around $5.5 million.
Sure, because
while you have other places such as Concord where they fundraise for their park, and even at Wolf, private donations, and even at Wolf Park itself, where this is scheduled to be installed, they had their basketball courts taken care of through private donations. So why are we not trying to leverage that model and apply that to a skate park here?
Yeah.
Well, Bill Berry also is proposing to fix the dugouts, fix the softball parks, as well as the overall play areas. So, I mean, that on top of the $2.5 million and the 5.5 in bond interest, I mean, I don't see how he's going to get all that done.
And we should start with that. We should start with that. We need to prioritize where we're spending our money.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is Robert Rivera, candidate for alderman in Ward 10. So, Robert, since you chimed in on the discussion, and I'm glad you did, we'll go to you next. Who are you and what do you eat? Asked the big wide-mouthed frog.
So my name is Robert Rivera. I'm running for alderman.
And before anybody gets offended by that, it's a book I used to read my kids called The Big Wide-Mouthed Frog. It's an hysterical book, and I have a big mouth. What can I tell you? All right, Robert, go ahead.
So I chimed in because Troy eloquently, was elaborating on basically the $2.5 million proposal for the skate park. While I think a skate park is a great idea, I think that there are more important things that we should be investing our city funds into, like infrastructure, for example, as well as investing back into our existing parks. Now back to the introduction. My name is Robert Rivera. I'm running for alderman in Ward 10. I'm running because I truly care about the community in which I call home. I actually live on the west side of Ward 10. My kids I have children in the Manchester school system, so I see the current state of our school system right now. We see every day the way our streets are. I take my kids actually to Sweeney Park. I take my kids to Wolf Park. So we're very much involved in the community. We're out in the streets. We're out amongst our constituents, and we're basically living the same experience as the residents are here in Ward 10. Excuse me. I'm running because I feel like there needs to be a meaningful, impactful change to Ward 10. I see the crime, existing crime. Yes, I know that Bill Berry, his notion is predicated on the decrease in crime with his work with the MPD, and I understand that is commendable. However, there is crime still at large. We have a lot of active violent crime as well as drug crime that is visible within our streets. So those are things that I really want to work on. We need better school curriculum for our students as well. We need to have better initiatives when it comes to the MPD so that we can crack down on crime. Another thing is that our constituents continue to voice their concerns about is traffic safety. We have excessive speeding and reckless driving, especially along Boynton Street. I know that's been a big contention amongst our constituents. I actually had a community event where I had some of the community members get together last week, and we were holding up signs stating to slow down residential neighborhood. We actually got a positive response, and then we actually had traffic slowing down. So definitely got the MPD's attention as well as the City Hall's attention. These are just small little milestones that we can take, just taking initiative in the community to make it better. So yeah, that's basically why I'm running, and am I going to discuss my background as well?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, I apologize. So my background is in construction project management. I've been in the construction industry for over 15 years. I've been consecutively project managing for 6 years. It's predominantly commercial-based projects, general construction. I have experience managing $1 million projects as well, so that does assist.
Sounds like someone should be on the joint school building committee.
Perhaps.
Or buildings and, what do we call it in the, get confused with the school board, the Committee on Lands and Buildings.
Well, the thing is, there definitely is a correlation between budgeting and project management. That's a big part of my job. So when it comes to, the struggles of wasteful spending of the city budget, that's going to be a thing of the past when I get on board.
So we have someone who is educated in the ways of project and construction management, somebody who's educated in the ways of organizational management, people who know how to ask questions, know how to hold things accountable, know what makes sense and what doesn't. And then we have Phil Tuttle. We're going to learn what he's got expertise in. Phil, who are you and what do you eat?
Yeah, my name is Phil Tuttle. My family and I have been living in the Manchester area in Ward 1 for the last 6 years. My wife and I, we have 4 kids, 4 young kids, 9, 7, 4, and 2, growing up in this great city. When I first moved to Manchester, I heard resounding themes over and over again. Number one, that the schools were not very good. Right, and when you have young kids, you're hearing a resounding theme from the public that says that same thing. Secondly, I heard the same thing from people and families that I would meet from a pastoral standpoint who had said, hey, we're looking to move outside the city of Manchester. We like the restaurants, we like to work here, but we don't want to live here. And when I started to hear that as a pastor, as a local pastor here in the Manchester area, I pastor the Zeal Movement Church right on Canal Street in Manchester. We have this mission that we live by, and it says to adopt the city of Manchester and to rewrite its future, which means you're willing to step into the problems that the city of Manchester has and say, I can't look past them. I'm willing to step into them and bring change and solutions to those problems. There's a massive difference between fostering and adoption. When you foster problems, you can make a phone call when you don't want to deal with it, and you can send that back. But when you adopt, the phone call is you. And I believe for us as a family city, that's really my vision for this city, that we would be a family-friendly city. And right now, our schools do not line up with that. When you consistently have the highest budget and one of the lowest performing school districts across the state of New Hampshire, there is a disconnect. Families who can afford to move out do. And we're seeing this, or they send their kids to private schools and they choose other options. For me, when I'm running and I'm thinking about all the different ways that we can step into these problems, New Hampshire is one of the leading states in school choice across the nation. This is not going away. I believe it's something that our Manchester School District needs to embrace and continue to provide alternative options across the board. And we're seeing this in other states as well, to help those kids who are moving here for the first time. Hey, we love diversity, but we don't want to have a school system built on diversity, because right now we're reaping the benefits of a school system that values diversity over reading, writing, math, history, science. That's not the primary objective of the Manchester Public Schools right now. It's diversity, and it's producing the product that we're currently seeing.
And being a pastor, I presume that you understand inherently that every one of God's children has innate value and worth and human dignity, whatever their color, creed, or ethnicity, correct?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yeah, I think that's one of those things for us that I always say this to my kids. I believe there's greatness in each one of my children. And I believe that because God created them exactly that way, to be who God's called them to be. But I also believe that there are standards to greatness. You don't drift into greatness. And I believe this is one of those things that's taking place in our public schools right now, is that we need to value children so much that we're willing to hold them accountable and hold them to a standard. They might not currently be getting it in the home, but they should be getting it in our school system that holds them to high standards, because greatness requires high standards.
Well, I think Manchester is very much guilty of what President George Bush called the soft bigotry of low expectations. And when I was on the school board, I saw that, I fought that, and I was not a popular guy with the administration because of that. But the question becomes, now, you talked about school choice. Do you have a vision for that? And by the way, if you need any ideas, GerardForMayor.com 4 years ago laid out a comprehensive Manchester Public School only school choice program. Mm-hmm. And how to get there. So what does it look like in your world when you say school choice?
Yeah, I think school choice can look like a lot of different ways. I think for one, I believe education for each child should be in the hands of the parents to choose, primarily, not just one option. I kind of say this, my background is in sports, is in coaching. I kind of say this, that, if you are managing or coaching a team and the team is not performing, we need to look for new management. And for me right now, when I look at across the school board and I see administrators and teachers and students, and we're failing across the board, I believe administrators need to be tied to the results of children. When we think about the product per se from a school district perspective, it's the kids coming out on the other side who are suffering from the current product that's being produced. And so when I look at this and I see kids across the board I've talked to parents whose children have IEPs, or we have children in our school system who can't speak English and are learning English for the first time, yet are taking the same types of tests. There are options across the board, even public micro schools, public charter schools, that could specifically be used to target the needs of individuals across this city, to give our children exactly what they need to be successful. We have kids who are incredibly intelligent and bright, who are currently in a system where teachers aren't allowed to teach because they're dealing with so many disciplinary issues. Even so far in our school system, even just till October, there have been 1,100 incidents of violence across our school system. If our teachers' primary responsibility is discipline, 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 and then maybe we get to teaching along the way, that's not going to create the best environment for every single kid to thrive.
Now, Troy and Robert, I want to bring you into this conversation for two reasons. You both said you had kids in the Manchester Public Schools, but you're alderman. And one of the things, you're running for alderman, and one of the things that has frustrated me about the board of mayor and aldermen is well, hey, the school board says it needs it, so we should do what the school board says. What would your approach as alderman be with the school board? What kinds of questions will you ask them? What will you do to hold them accountable, as Phil was saying here, to the results that we're getting for our kids? And I want to be clear about this. In case you missed the rant, I want to be very clear. According to the statewide standardized test right now, fewer than 1 in 3 kids in Manchester are on grade level in English. Fewer than 1 in 5 are on grade level in math. And fewer than 1 in 6 are on grade level in science. That means the overwhelming majority of our kids are graduating from school at least 1, and in most cases 2, 3, or more grades behind level. And Phil, you caught my eye with your 3-minute speech because you were one of the few who actually did talk about student achievement. So, gentlemen, you have kids in the schools. What do you see your role as an alderman as being vis-a-vis the schools? I think this is really a sleeper issue that people aren't paying, because you're right. The school board, the board of mayor and aldermen is just like the beach. I mean, I could take over the rest of the show with this, but.
Well, it's funny you say that, because our children's reading proficiency is at 26%, which is below the average, which is 51% in Manchester overall, and our math is much far behind that. So the thing is, the school's always asking for more money, and it's just like, for what? What are we doing to enhance our curriculum? What are we doing to enhance our students and set the bar?
The answer is they can't get the job done because you keep not giving them every penny that they ask for. Yet they've gotten another $47 million just in the last 3 years. And it's still not enough. They say they need another 10.
Yep.
But I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, you're fine. And it kind of goes, it's a connection to what Phil was talking about, where we need to set the bar high for our children. Yeah. I mean, when you push them, you're only enhancing their potential. And that's the problem, is right now they're making this about a race thing. They're making this about a minority-based thing. And it's not about a color thing. It's about setting the standard for our youth so that we can give them the expectation to do better. So.
Now, you have an Hispanic name. Mm-hmm. You kind of look like my good friend Jason Bonilla, who keeps talking about people who look like him, and he's whiter than I am. But may I assume you're Hispanic?
I am, yeah, I'm a mixed race.
Yeah, okay. So here's the thing. So when you hear people talking about race and ethnicity, mm-hmm. in Manchester schools and using that as a reason why there's underperformance, what goes through your mind? How does that hit you?
So that's a sensitive topic, because I come from humble beginnings. So I grew up in very poor, in a poor situation. My mother was a single mother. And, we lived off of Section 8 housing, off of food stamps and government assistance. She worked 2 jobs, and it was very difficult growing up. We saw a lot of things. We were exposed to a lot of things. We lived in very poor and bad neighborhoods where there was a lot of criminal activity, a lot of drug, gang violence. So in my younger years, I knew that wasn't the path I wanted to follow. So I followed the police athletic league route, where I started boxing, and I think that's what we need to incorporate more within our youth, is more programs like the PAL to keep kids influenced, have better role models for these children. The thing is, when it comes to the race topic, it's something that really bothers me, because I feel like it's a cop-out, it's a scapegoat. It's a way for people to make excuses for why they can't accomplish or achieve anything. We need to stop giving these excuses for the Black and Hispanic community. The thing is, I don't think it's more so a race thing, it's more of an accountability thing. If you look at, they've taken out and by they, I'm going to say this, openly. If you look at the Democratic Party, and I know this is a nonpartisan election, but the Democratic Party, if you look at, when it comes to the more progressive mindset, what that does is that takes the father out of the home, and it makes the mother reliant on government assistance. And what we need is more fathers involved, more father involvement. Okay, because what that's going to do is that's going to set up our young boys for success. That's going to teach our young daughters and our young ladies how to be treated. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
And what that's going to do is that's also going to set the precedent that we need more accountability. We need better role models and better structure for our youth. So, and that goes for both sides. It's not just Democrats, not just Republican. It's both sides you see similar situations. So we have to make sure that we have fathers in the homes, we set the standard high for our children, and we just do the best that we can for them.
All right, Troy, let's get you in on this conversation. You're going to be you're going to be an alderman.
Sure.
What are you going to do with the schools when they come to you?
So literally, like I said in my opening statement, my job is to bring people together. And a lot of times in my professional career, the organizations I work with, they have a lot of separate fiefdoms, you could say. They're always trying to get their chunk of the money, or trying to get their needs taken care of the most. And we have to sit down with them and say, hey, what's not just best for you, but for the overall mission, the overall organization? And can we at least come to a couple items that we can prioritize, that can we all agree on, that we can work on? And we'll try to fix that first. It's going to be a difficult challenge here. I understand that, but that's what I do for a living. And I think that we want to keep doing that with the school board, get them involved, really look at the data and figure out what are the intended outcomes that we're going to try to produce too. And that's one thing. We have these metrics that nobody seems to care about, that 29% English proficiency, the 19% math, and 15% for science. Those numbers have been horrible for years.
Well, but here's the thing, though, and honestly, the schools are going to tell you we need more money.
Yes.
That's all they're going to do, despite the enormous. And by the way, the numbers that I gave you, right, they don't count the $88 million they got in 22, 23, and 24 from the feds for COVID. Plus whatever the state gave them, and I forget that number off the top of my head.
It's almost $250 million we're spending.
So what lines in the sand are you as alderman going to draw? Can you see yourself in a situation where you say, you know what, I want to see a school choice program. And by the way, Phil, just so you know, the City of Manchester School Board, because you mentioned charter schools, the City of Manchester School Board can actually charter schools locally, right? So everyone thinks charter schools are taken. Well, wait a minute. No, you can.
Public
and there's
charter
a whole,
schools.
and it's all spelled out on. If anyone wants to read about it, it's all at GirardLarge.com because Girard for mayor, because it's all there.
Yeah.
Right? The laws are there. So can you see yourself in a situation saying, you know what, we're not doing X unless we get Y? And what is that X and what is that Y?
We need to treat our government as a sports team. If people aren't cutting it, you got to trade them, you got to release them. It's horrible to say that, but that's the reality of things. I think that our teachers are doing a tremendous job with the challenges that they're facing. I don't understand, though, in the last 10 years, why the amount of students have dropped by about 3,000, in student population, but our teachers are about the same level.
We get more teachers.
In our administration and other professionals have expanded quite a bit. I think in the last couple of years, it's gone up like 70 something. It's the math isn't mathing, and a lot of it, like to your point, a lot of it's discipline that they're dealing with. We need teachers to be able to teach. We need to get,
part of the reason
we
why
need to get the
they've got
parents
those
involved.
discipline
We need more parental
We
involvement.
need more parental involvement.
Well, hey, listen, according to Jim O'Connell, they need parents to, do bake sales and, come to, volunteer nights. But but you just have to understand, the entire bureaucracy in the school board itself, for whatever it is, actually hostile to parental involvement. They don't believe they have a role in saying what is going on in the classroom. They are completely, you get Cindy Stewart out there running around telling everybody, public schools are under assault because of, and she's playing that old tripe out there over and over and over again.
We need to figure out how to embrace the parents. At the beginning of the school year.
But that's not your job. I'm going to cut
yeah.
only because of time. But that's not your job as an alderman. Your job as an alderman is to draw the red lines that the school board has got to abide by, and ultimately your weapon is the budget.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So
we need
what are
oversight.
your red lines?
Well, like Troy said, we have to set strict guidelines that either we're going to see higher numbers, or we're not going to give you any money.
Right.
Unfortunately, you have to set the bar. You have to set certain expectations so that they can meet that. You have to kind of put fire under them so that they say, okay, you know what? We have to restructure things. We have to assess things, and we have to make a new model so that we can get the necessary funding so that we can, for our schools.
And let's experiment with different ways.
Correct.
Let's just not, because this is the way we've always done it.
Yeah.
Everybody's heard that in everything they've ever done. We've always done it this way.
Past practice.
We need
It's
to
my least
experiment,
favorite thing in
try
city
new
government.
things, and if they're not working, all right, we learn from that, and we try something else. We pivot.
All right. And speaking of pivot, let's move on. You each, not yet, but you each running for alderman. As you've gone door to door, what have you heard? What are the issues that you're hearing about from the people in your ward, and what are sort of your answers? We'll start with you, Robert.
So, door knocking has been a great experience. I've been able to meet a lot of great people and, just hear out the residents. And that's all they want, really. It's for someone to hear them out, to hear their concerns.
You mean they want to be heard?
They want to be heard, yes. They
And
want
they
to
want
be
evidence
heard.
that you heard them?
Correct. They want evidence that you heard them. They want to see that you're actually taking notes, that you actually are paying attention, and that you're actually doing something about it. It takes, it's like I said, these small milestones that really make the community feel important and make them feel like, you care. And that's what it's all about. Like I said, the little initiative that I took on Boynton Street, just protesting on behalf of the residents who are experiencing excessive speeding and reckless driving, that right there just shows them that that's a representative who cares and is going to get out in the streets, roll up his sleeves, and put in the work. So when it comes to the responses I've been getting, a lot of it has been, and not, again, this is not to bash anyone, but this is literally verbatim, that they're saying that they don't know where their representative is. They feel that their concerns aren't being met.
Well,
they're being ignored.
Apparently he's out doing skateboard videos.
That's pretty impressive.
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. That's an impressive skill.
You can go to Girard, Girard, I don't know if I put it at Girard at Large or Girard for Mayor on Facebook, and you can see the video of Bill Berry at a skate park.
Yeah, I wish I could do that. But unfortunately, I can't. I'm too busy out campaigning and door knocking. So, but yeah, I mean, it's been a really positive experience. And, again, it's just listening to our constituents. There's a lot of issues that, for example, on West, what I think it was 91 West Street, there was a resident who experienced a break and entry. We have a lot of residents who are experiencing drug crime. For example, the 7-Eleven right off of Main Street is experiencing excessive amounts of public intoxication and public indecency. Why aren't we doing something about this? Why aren't we cracking down on crime? We need more stricter ordinances so that we can crack down on crime, and we can clean up our streets.
Either that or enforce the ones we have. Troy,
Yeah.
I drove through Ward 9. There's a sign war on.
There is a sign war on.
You got Burkus worried.
He didn't.
I haven't had a chance to drive much through Ward 10, so I don't know what's going on over there.
He didn't see me coming, that's for sure. But and that's probably because he's not out there talking to the people.
Well, I have to say, I mean, you've come forward with substantive proposals on things like the panhandling and other stuff. And by the way, your draft on the panhandling was right. That was just city bureaucracy that just didn't want to do anything about it.
Yep. And because
when Ward 9 has got a horrific homeless problem, whether it's the panhandling all up and down South Willow Street,
we have the rail trail that goes right through it.
They're just getting destroyed. Residents and families there are just getting eaten alive by this.
I mean, we had just this week, there was a homeless encampment right on 293, exit 2. I made the city aware of that issue. I also reached out to the New Hampshire Department of Transportation and let them know about it. On social media, I kept the residents appraised of that situation. I told them that, I heard back from the DOT that they were going to be addressing it this week. And when it was actually happened, I went down there, grabbed a couple pictures. It got picked up by the Queen City News and Alerts page. And of course, my opponent there jumped on that, saying that he took care of it. He's been working on it for weeks. So I did have to kind of shoot back at him with the receipts showing like, hey, this is the work that I did. Maybe he was trying to do something on his end. But as an alderman, you need to be proactive and transparent about what you're working on.
Yeah.
Don't just come, afterwards trying to take credit for something.
All right, so it's crime in your neighborhood. It's
Homeless,
the homeless in that neighborhood.
Speeding.
I could say at least the DOT's done more than the
Yeah.
MPD, because I've contacted the MPD regarding the excessive speeding as well as the drug activity,
Yeah.
and I haven't got anything.
So you hearing about taxes at all?
Yes.
All right, Phil, I'm going to throw it to you. Cindy Stewart put out a despicable hit piece on you in a local web, and I'm sensitive to this because I homeschooled my kids. I sent my kids to, even though they graduated from West, I also sent my kids to Catholic school. My kids are currently in Catholic school. You homeschool your children. Why are you running for school board? Who are you to sit on a school board when you won't even send your kids to the schools? Of course, the fact that you won't send your kids to the schools might have something to do with why you're running, but we'll close it out with you.
Yeah, I think for me, one of the primary issues that I see that we kind of came through was when we first got to Manchester, I said to my wife, hey, let's tour the public schools. I went to public school early on. You went to public school all the way through. Let's go tour. So we went over to Smith Road School, took my son for a tour, and my wife, I said to her, before you go, I said, come back. I just have a couple questions for you. Ask them, whoever gives you the tour, what do you teach and what's your position on critical race theory? What are your policies on bathroom usage? Are boys allowed in girls' bathrooms? What's the policies that you have? And at that time, the woman who gave us the tour said, you know what, I don't actually know what we teach or what we do in regards to that, but I'll get back to you. My wife followed up with her about a week or two later and said, hey, did you get any answers around critical race theory or bathroom policies? Crickets. We never heard anything.
That's
and
because they're steeped in critical race theory and they do have transgendered bathroom policies.
It is correct, right? So when we're diving into that a little bit more, and we were saying, you know what, I don't feel like this school district is being transparent with me. You can believe a lot of things, this is America, but be transparent, walk in integrity. And we felt like we can't honestly send our kids to these public schools who are not going to be transparent and help us withhold values that we're going to teach our kids in our home. We think the primary responsibility of education should be reading, writing, math, history, science, not indoctrination from things you don't agree with across the board. And so that was a big thing for us as we're in that space. So we chose to say, we're going to homeschool our kids right now. We'll evaluate, but we're also not willing to sit on the sidelines. We know many kids are suffering in these school systems right now. That is one of the biggest things that I've found when I'm door knocking is there is a massive disconnect between the school district, what they believe they're doing, and the public perception, which is very negative. I've yet to meet one Republican or Democrat that believes we have great schools in Manchester. So I'm stepping in to do something about it.
So Phil, if people want to learn more about your campaign or give you a hand in the closing days, how best do they do that?
Yeah, you can obviously show up on November 4th, Webster Street School, and hold a sign, or reach me online at philuptuttle.com.
Troy Micklon, as the campaign comes to a close, any final thoughts that you have, and how can people get a hold of you, help you out as the end comes into view?
Sure. Ask everybody for their support. If you want to reach out to me, I have a website, troymicklon.com, MICKLON. My phone number is 603-670-4010. I'm happy to talk with anyone. I don't care about your political views. Let's just work together and try to find some common sense solutions.
Robert Rivera, anything you haven't said that you want to say, and how can people get a hold of you and help you out between now and the end of the election on Tuesday the 4th?
I think my message has been clear. I think the residents of Ward 10 are my priority. They need to be first. Their wants and needs are my priority. That's I think the needs of our constituents need to be situated. We need to make sure that crime is lower. We need to make sure that not only crime but infrastructure is taken care of. Speeding is down. A lot of the concerns that they have voiced, we need to make sure that we're not only listening to, but we're actually coming up with practical, realistic solutions and getting things done. You can reach me at 603-717-5882 or robertrward10@gmail.com. Again, my name is Robert Rivera. I'm running for Alderman Ward 10, and I hope to have your support November 4th.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen, for being with us here on Girard at Large. That's all the time we have. I am your ever humble host, Rich Girard. Thanks for tuning in. You can find out more about why I'm running and get the details on what I do if by some fluke I got elected at girardformayor.com. Until next week, be good, be well, don't do anything we wouldn't do. We're proud to have in the audience. Thanks so much for being there. Good night.